Hey, it's Karis, and this is my Module 8 Padlet discussion. So, for question 1, or A, my pros and cons that I chose, um, they're both on the Gottman, I think it says Rappaport intervention, and I'll explain. So, basically, the pro I chose um, was the goal of the method, like the overall goal. And I chose this because the overall goal is to help couples discuss feelings or beliefs without blaming or criticizing one another. And you basically have a therapist as a guide or a mediator so that they can be honest without consequence. I think that is so important for couples who are either thinking about separating or going through separation because um, I think as people, it's easy to kind of argue or fight over who's in the right, who's in the wrong, who's more right, who's more wrong, especially if um, just depending on the reason of separation, whether it's adultery or some type of abuse or addiction, whatever the case may be. And then a con that I chose also um, regarding the Gottman Rappaport intervention is I would be nervous that after a while, if the couple stayed doing this for too long, especially with the therapist, they would become almost too reliant on the therapist, and that could cause issues later if they're trying to go through a separation or haven't even started yet, because they might get to a point where they don't know how to continue on with these, what's the word I'm looking for? With these practices afterwards. And so I just think that like future transitioning and decision making could be an issue if the couple, while separating, becomes too reliant on the therapist's thoughts. They have to realize that this is their separation and that although there's a mediator for a little bit, they can't be there forever. So the next thing I want to talk about for question 2, or B, in the stations to discuss part of the book, I picked emotional divorce, and I basically put because everything is an act or attempt to hurt each other, like it says in the textbook. And I just think that that's like a huge problem, and it's really sad because, like when couples are divorcing, they're usually divorcing because of a underlying issue, um, or just because they feel like they're not compatible anymore, their marriage isn't working. And this probably is more common in places where um, one person in the couple is just causing like bigger issues like divorce. I just said divorce, sorry. Like adultery, cheating, um, abuse to like substance, physically, sexual, all of the above. And it could be both. It could be going on both sides, but um, I think emotional divorce is just it's kind of evil because you're so bitter that you're kind of just at each other's throats all the time, and I just think it's honestly a sad way to live. And so, um, just like being aware of how you're divorcing is probably a good idea, especially if you have children, because the children have to watch that too. For number 3, or C, for my causes and correlates, what stood out to me the most was changing norms and rules. And I wrote about divorce culture and about the fact that Americans usually marry just to be happy, um, or they're always looking for companionship or relationship. And I wrote this because I I think it's so common for like I just know so many people who are always in a relationship, even if they just need to be alone. And it's probably because in America, like everyone's always looking for either a partner, someone to just hook up with. They don't like being alone. Humans are meant to have a companion and to be with someone, but that doesn't mean you have to have one. And so I just think that looking at the importance of knowing that being alone is okay is like kind of what popped up in my head for this one. And the last thing that I found interesting for question 4, or D, was in the video about talking to children about separation. I put basically telling them that you still love them and that no parent is more right in the situation. I feel like being humble and showing humility and putting your pride aside as parents is so important, because the child's already going to be distraught for the most part if you're divorcing, especially if it's just for a reason like the parents don't love each other anymore or they're just not compatible. If it's for a more drastic reason, like there's some type of abuse going on, then the kid might side more with one of the parents, obviously, which is usually the victim of abuse, which valid. But like I said, I think it's just important to reiterate to the child, especially, that you still love them, because you don't want the child to think that you guys are getting divorced because of them, especially if the issue started with the parents. But yeah, that's the end of my video.